From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on the choice wheel. This is something I've been working on for the last few months. It's really just a kind of a graphic, I think, that really breaks down the power of choice. And I talk about choices a lot, right? Choices and habits and behaviors and how to leverage those in a way that serve us, that help us be more successful. Because as I've said before, we all know the lack of knowledge is not what holds us back in life. We all know of things that we should do that we haven't done. We know of things that we shouldn't do that we do anyway, right? That's just part of being human. But the success comes in being able to leverage the right choices, the right habits, the right behaviors more often, because that's what moves us forward, right? That's what crosses the gap between where we are right now and where we want to be in the future. And a lot of times it's not that we don't know of things that can move us forward. It's that we won't do them. Now, sometimes, yeah, sometimes you're looking forward at a goal in the future and you're like, I know that's the end goal, but I don't know how to get there. But if we will sit down and truly start to think about what could be the potential path forward, even if we don't know the whole path, if we'll sit down and think about what are the steps that I can take right now to move me forward. I might not have all of the answers, but if I can move forward to some degree in the right direction right now, I probably can see a little further down the road, right? Just like driving down the road, you can't see all the way to where you're going. But if you can see to the bend in the road, you go to the bend, then you can keep going. You'll see a little further once you get to that bend, and so on and so on. And of course, you have to keep going. You have to keep driving or walking or running or crawling if that's what you're doing. But anytime we're moving forward, sometimes the hardest part is just getting started and then continuing that discipline of moving forward. Of course, that's a whole nother podcast episode, but I really wanted to break down how to leverage the power of choice. So I'm gonna I'll put up this graphic in the little show notes there so you can kind of see it. But I love to post it on social, and I'll go ahead and I'll post the link, and I'll post the graphic on social when I post this podcast link as well, so you can kind of get a visual. But I don't think you have to have a visual necessarily. So if you could just imagine a big old circle, and it's split into 5 pie pieces, and the pie pieces go around kind of in a circle clockwise, starting with stimulus. Something happens, much like Stephen Covey talks about being proactive. And, between stimulus and our response, human beings have the freedom to pause and choose the response. So let's start there. When it comes to the choice wheel, let's start with stimulus, or something happens. Whatever it is, good or bad. That's the start of the circle relative to this podcast episode. And then the next pie wedge, if you want to call it that, right to the right of stimulus is beliefs. And these are the thoughts that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves, the limiting beliefs that we have inherited through environment or conditioning or other people, or sometimes just the limiting beliefs that we've created or adopted ourselves. The stories that we tell ourselves about what happens and why it happens. And then the next, continuing around the clockwise, the next pie wedge there will be the emotional choice that we make in response to the beliefs, the stories, and the thoughts. And that's where we really want to leverage the power of choice. Because once we make that emotional choice, then the physical behavior, the choices and physical actions that we carry out are simply just a result of that emotional choice, right? I've talked about before how thoughts influence our feelings, and feelings influence behaviors, and behaviors impact circumstances. So our physical behavior is really just a natural progression of the emotional choice that we've made. Now, a lot of times when we talk about stimulus and response, a lot of people think something happens and we choose the action or the physical behavior in response. And that could be possible, but I think I'd love to challenge that and just say I think the power of being proactive comes earlier in the cycle. I don't think necessarily the power of being proactive comes in the split second you choose the action. I think it's one step earlier. I think it's the emotional choice that we're making. And then last but not least, the last little pie wedge there is impact on circumstances. So stimulus, beliefs, emotional choice, physical behavior, and impact on circumstances. Because a lot of times there again, we have the perception or the misconception that the power of choice is the behavior that we make in response to the stimulus. And sometimes that's true, but I also think it's really powerful when we realize the power of being proactive comes in the emotional choice that precedes the physical behavior. And if you really want to drill down deeply into this concept, if we could be proactive about the thoughts, beliefs, and the stories that we adopt and create for ourselves before the stimulus, we can catch this even earlier in the cycle so that if we can catch those limiting beliefs and break through them in a proactive way before stimulus, before something happens, the emotional choice is going to be much easier and the physical behavior is going to come naturally, the right physical behavior. So I know that that's a pretty deep concept. So let's break that down in a couple of different examples. Let's say a couple of different scenarios here. Situation number one, stimulus, something happens. You had a really bad day at work. And, it just was one of those days where it seems like everything went wrong. Customers got mad at you, coworkers were frustrated, your meetings went over, you didn't get lunch, just one of those days where it was a disaster. And so that's the something happens, right? The stimulus. And so the beliefs that you tell yourself about that day are, man, I had a bad day at work. This went wrong, right? The stories you're telling yourselves might be, well, it's so and so's fault that the meeting ran over because they didn't have a great agenda, or we didn't address this appropriately, or maybe we didn't schedule the meeting right, or we shouldn't have invited this person, right? So you start to blame other people or other circumstances for you having a bad day, right? The thoughts that you're choosing are negative. The beliefs that you have or that you're creating for yourself are, I had a bad day. And so the emotional choice that you're making in response subconsciously, it's not like you're going to emotionally choose consciously the choice, but you're going to emotionally choose in response to those beliefs and thoughts is you're going to choose frustration. You're going to choose to be upset or maybe even a little angry or just tired, right? And so physical behavior might lead to, gosh, I need this whole pint of ice cream because I deserve it. I had a bad day. And so here's the ice cream. It's going to make me feel better. It's kind of emotional eating, but you know what? I deserve a treat after my bad day, right? That's the physical behavior based on the emotions and based on the beliefs. And then impact on circumstances. Well, you eat a whole pint of ice cream. You're not, number one, you're not going to feel good because you had all of that sugar. But if you make this choice in this cycle often enough, pretty soon you're going to need to be shopping bigger size pants, right? If you can't eat ice cream every day in response to something happens at work. Now, look at that situation, that same scenario, but let's make a different emotional choice relative to the choice wheel. Situation, something happens. The stimulus, you had a bad day at work. The beliefs that you choose and being proactive and the thoughts that you're choosing, the stories that you're telling yourself is, wow, that was not the greatest day at work, but I am so blessed to have the job. Think of how many people who want to work at a great place. And even though it's not perfect, it's a great, it has, I have a great leadership. And sure, some customers got frustrated or some team members got frustrated, but wow, I am just so blessed to have this opportunity in this organization, or I'm blessed with the health to be able to go to work. I mean, how many people would love to be able to go to work and don't have the health to do so, right? And so you see what I'm saying is it's the same bad day at work. But the beliefs that we're choosing, that we're creating, the thoughts that we're thinking are different. Doesn't mean that you didn't have the bad day. You're just choosing to focus on something else. You're choosing to focus on what can I be positive about. And so as a result, you're choosing a more positive thought pattern. You're going to have better emotions, right? You're going to feel better. You focus on the gratitude in the moment because what you look for is what you're going to find. I guarantee you. And if you start down that negative funnel of looking for all of the bad things about the day, you'll you're going to generate those negative emotions. If you look for all the good things and like what can I be positive about today? What was the good in the day? Not ignoring the problems, not pretending that they're not there, but not dwelling on them. The emotional choice, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more gratitude in the moment. You're going to remind yourself that there are a lot of people who don't have the health that you have, or have the job opportunity, the career opportunity, or maybe don't have great leadership at work. And so your physical behaviors, you're going to come home and go, well, here, what's for dinner tonight? And yeah, that ice cream might still be in the freezer, but because you are in a more positive emotional state, you're going to make a better physical choice. And you'll be like, yeah, that ice cream's there and it kind of looks good, but it's not going to serve me well. So I'm going to stick with my game plan of a nice giant salad for dinner. And then impact on circumstances. Well, number one, your health will be better. You'll feel better the next day because you're actually feeding your body with something healthy that it can use, and so on and so forth. So you see, the moment of choice isn't necessarily the physical behavior. It could be, right? That's certainly an opportunity for the path to diverge, and you can make the choice there. But it's so much easier to make the right choice there if you've made the right choice earlier in the cycle. And I think that's where a lot of times we don't realize that's the power of being proactive. Is not in the moment when you're hungry and starving and you've had a long day and you're facing a pint of ice cream or a salad. It's when you choose on your drive home, the thoughts, the stories, the beliefs. And so it's going to be so much easier to make that right choice when you get home. So let's put this in a different context. Something working out, for example. I think exercise is something a lot of people can relate to. And so let's just, yeah, stimulus, something happens. You realize you need to be more proactive with exercise. And so ask yourself, what are the beliefs that you're creating about the need to exercise? Are you thinking, man, this is going to be hard. I'm going to be sore. It's not any fun. I'm going to get all hot and sweaty. I don't want to go to the gym. Or are you thinking, wow, here's an opportunity for me to get up and spend 30 minutes today working on improving my health? See, that's the moment of choice. And the emotional choice is going to come in. Do I choose to focus on, man, this is great. This is helping me improve my health? Or do I choose to focus on how it feels in the moment, which is generally, let's admit it, exercise is not much fun for most people because it's not pleasant, right? The body likes status quo. The body likes not doing uncomfortable, and exercise is uncomfortable. And so that's going to dictate the physical behavior. Maybe I carry out my whole 30-minute workout program, or maybe I quit at 15 minutes because I've told myself repeatedly how hard it is and how I don't like it and how I don't want to do it. And then impact on circumstances. Obviously, if we can stick to a regular exercise program, we can be more healthy, right? If we can be more disciplined. So you see where this is going. You can apply this concept, this choice wheel, to just about any scenario. Stimulus, something happens. Maybe you want to make a career move, or maybe you want to increase your influence with your kids. The moment of choice there is the beliefs. Number one, you've got to believe it's possible. Because if you don't believe it's possible to improve your circumstances, you're not going to align your thoughts, your thought patterns, your habits, and your emotional choices and behaviors in alignment with what's going to help you be successful. So be proactive right now and identifying some of the beliefs that are holding you back relative to what you want to accomplish, whether that's influence at work or influence with your kids. Maybe it's influence with yourself. The hardest, most difficult person to lead is the one sitting in your chair right now. And we know that, but it's the choices that we make as an individual, as a parent, as a coworker, as a team member, as a boss or a leader These are the choices that are impacting our circumstances. And sure, it absolutely starts with us as an individual. So I would challenge you to just sit down and relative to whatever goals you have that you're striving for, to think about, take a few minutes and be proactive and think about the beliefs you have about where you are and where you want to go. Am I creating the beliefs that don't serve me, like a victim mindset? Am I blaming my current situation or circumstances on other people or other things? Or am I taking ownership and responsibility for that and saying, okay, in this moment, I can't control everything that happens. I cannot control much of what happens, but I can control me. And I'm going to choose to break free from some of these limiting beliefs, blaming other people or other things for why I am here where I'm at. Certainly, there are contributing factors to where we are in life and our situation, but most of the time, if we spend our energy blaming everybody else, it's not going to move us forward, right? Because as long as I'm blaming someone or something else, I'm not going to move forward. I'm going to keep blaming them. And if I never do anything to fix it, it's never going to be fixed. It's never going to change. And that's the sad thing is a lot of times we spend so much time and energy focusing on what we cannot do. And instead of looking for what we can do. And that's, I spoke for a group of ladies a couple of weeks ago, and one of them was talking about just a kind of a situation at work where she said, I didn't follow through in something I was supposed to do. And so I ended up with a really bad situation at work, really bad outcome at work. And, in the moment she wanted to blame, it's natural, right? We all do. We all naturally want to blame other people or other things for why this situation happened. But the moment of choice is coming and being proactive, looking at what led up to that situation, right? Where could I have done something different before that situation happened? That's leveraging the power of being proactive. And this concept applies to so many things. I was telling someone a couple of weeks ago about my training and running for the next marathon that I want to do. And just, choosing to focus on number one, it's awfully hot right now where we live near Atlanta, and it's summer and it's hot and it's humid, and running has definitely been a challenge in this kind of weather. And we were running along and it was just, hot and sweaty and just really tough to continue to run and keep the paces and the mileage and all of that. But as I was talking someone about my training and running journey and how up until this year, I mean, I remember I used to say this. This was one of my own limiting beliefs, I guess, is that I would always just say, you know what? I don't really run great in the summer. I mean, I would tell people this. I would be like, nah, hot weather does not, I just don't like hot weather. I don't run good in hot weather. So I slow way down because it's hot and it's just too hot for me to run fast. And I mean, I just had that mindset or that belief, the thought that chose, the story that I told myself relative to the heat and the humidity was that it just, knocked me over in terms of running performance. And I realized that last summer, last fall. I did a marathon in California, and it was hot. It was hot at that particular marathon, there's no doubt. And I walked away from that experience and said, "You know what? Instead of telling myself how awful it is to run in the heat, I'm just gonna quit focusing on that. I'm gonna quit telling myself that I can't run in the heat. I'm just gonna focus on the things that I can do to make that better, to make that more effective, more efficient." And so I really have worked this past year leading up to this summer and, what are the things I can focus on? Drinking enough water and staying really well hydrated and getting enough sleep, and the interesting thing is, you guys, is that it's actually worked. Like I really sure I'm not quite running as fast as I can when it's 30 degrees as when it's 80 degrees. But I didn't slow way down like I have in years past. And so it's had much less of an impact on me. The weather is still the weather, but it's had much, much, much less of an impact on me this year because I've changed the thoughts that I'm choosing for myself, the beliefs that I'm adopting about how this affects me, how this situation affects me. And so I share that with you just to share the power of this concept and how we can apply this to any situation in our life. Now, maybe you don't want to train for a marathon, and that's absolutely okay. But I guarantee you there's something you want out of life. And when we can leverage our mindset to help us be more successful, right? That's the secret of success. The secret of success is there is no secret. It's all going to be hard work. But when we can learn to own our thoughts and our beliefs and our stories, that's going to help us own our emotions. That's going to help us own our physical behaviors, choices, and actions that are contributing to our success or the lack of success in our life. So, food for thought, certainly. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.